Big time basketball in the Big Apple. The Arkansas Razorbacks and the Tennessee Volunteers are playing in this year's Jimmy V Classic. Can the Razorbacks beat Michigan? Will Tennessee continue their streak of double-digit wins? We're giving the preview for the games on Tuesday night.
And Kentucky has a giant comeback to win on the West Coast. Mizzou stuns the college basketball world. Texas A&M and Texas Tech keep fans on their toes throughout their game, and Texas takes a tough loss to UConn.
Absolutely. We're talking about all that in the Rebound. All that and more today on the Hoop Southbound Show. Everybody, short episode this week. We're going to do the front portion of the week, react to what happened over the weekend, and then we'll give you a preview for this weekend sometime in the midweek. But there was a ton of great basketball. We told you this was going to be a great weekend of hoops. Our picks were dead wrong in a couple of games, but that's just how the ball bounces, if you will. Boo, my dad puns there. But crazy weekend, right, Maddie?
Definitely so. So many good basketball games to watch, especially some of those rivalries were a lot of fun to keep up with because let's face it, they kept us on our toes, and especially in some games we didn't expect them to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we expected a big response from one team. And the story just went the complete opposite direction. We'll get into that game just a little bit. Let's start on the West Coast because just kind of going chronologically here, and let's start with what happened on Saturday night. Well, the weekend games definitely had a banger, a massive comeback from the Kentucky Wildcats. Gonzaga ends up winning, or not Gonzaga, but Kentucky ends up winning this game in overtime. Maddie, what were some of your thoughts on this? And I'll go deeper and talk about the recap of the game.
Yeah, I mean, this game looked like it was going to be another tough loss for the Wildcats, but the Cats clawed their way back in the second half drive. They went from no baskets to shooting lights out in the second half and bringing up their defense to force Gonzaga to make stops and to create several turnovers to help them get that win and go into overtime.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, to give the complete recap here, important note, Lamont Butler was out for this game for Kentucky. He's dealing with an ankle injury that happened in the second half of the Clemson game. Apparently, we didn't get that note that that's what was going down for a little bit. But yeah, game time comes. No Lamont Butler, your leading point guard's off the floor. Who do you turn to in this game? First half, though, for Kentucky, I mean, I'll be frank, it was an absolute shit show. Like, let's be frank about the whole thing. They looked terrible. They shot horrible, rebounded horrible, played horrible transition defense. Gonzaga was getting everything they wanted. They were hitting what they wanted. They could have run Kentucky out of the daggum building in this game. But then we get to the second half. And Mark Pope comes out in a 1-3-1 defense and actually changed it around while it was going on. Like Gonzaga would move down the court, it would look like a 1-3-1. He would change it to man mid possession, and it would just keep Gonzaga off balance. Really disrupted what Gonzaga's rhythm on offense was at the time, and they went ice cold, like absolutely ice cold. They went from hitting almost dadgum 55% from the field, well over 50%, to like shooting 29% in the second half. Absolutely struggled in this one from the second half. Wildcats went on a 21-6 run all the way to the under 12, but Kentucky could just not take the lead there for a little bit in the second half. It was a struggle, could not take it. Gonzaga did not have a good game shooting. I want to throw that out there. And Kentucky going to that zone really forced Gonzaga to hit something. I mean, anything from deep. Simply put, Gonzaga couldn't do it. They could not hit. They were 3 for 28 at one point from three in this game. Then I said this game would be kind of the curious case of Andrew Carr. How would Gonzaga match up against him? He played an outstanding second half and really put Kentucky on his back to force overtime. Andrew Carr ended up in this game 19.7 rebounds and 3 assists. Ends up forcing overtime in this game. We go to OT in this one. Jackson Robinson, Kirk Rasai, Carissa, I keep doing that. I'm so sorry, everybody. Jackson Robinson with Kerr Kriisa, who just went down for an injury. Jackson Robinson has to take over point. He's like now the third string point guard for this team. And he makes two huge passes to put Kentucky up by 4 immediately in overtime. Mind you, this is like Kentucky's first lead, or if it was the first one in a long time. Kentucky goes up by 7 in overtime. And then out of nowhere, Gonzaga finds their 3-point shot. And it's like, oh, this is getting interesting. Stromer hits a 3. Gonzaga gets a stop. Nimhard hits a 3. It's a 1-point game all of a sudden with a minute 34 left in OT. Pope calls timeout. Whole place is rocking. You don't really know how this is going to go. Out of the timeout, Pope just basically puts the ball in Jackson Robinson's hands, and he never gives it up to anybody else. And frankly, he goes down there, takes a bad shot floater that goes in. And it's just a determination. I'm going to score a play. Gonzaga runs down to the other end of the court, and they get another 3, and we're back at 1. Gonzaga fouls Andrew Carr to go to the line. Now, here's the crazy thing. As well as Andrew Carr had played, Carr misses both free throws at the free throw line in this one. Gonzaga now gets the rebound, runs down the court, and they lose the ball in transition. Gonzaga never gets the final shot off. Mark Pope and Kentucky run out of the building winners, 890 to 89. It was a big win for Kentucky. Matches their largest halftime deficit in a win in Kentucky history to come back for a win. Crazy comeback for Kentucky. Maddie, what were some of your thoughts for how Kentucky responded after just frankly getting slapped around in the first half?
Yeah, I got to give it up to Mark Pope again. His coaching in the second half, I think, is what really did it. I mean, like you mentioned, he was changing up the defensive sets. I haven't seen a 1-3-1, I think, since I played middle school basketball.
Like
So
that was crazy. Like, no, I know Kermit Davis ran it at Ole Miss, but I was like, that's a 1-3-1 zone. Like, what's that doing out there? We're going old school, baby.
I know, but fantastic run for Kentucky here. Really shows kind of what they're made of to go out basically on the road and take a win here, one that they frankly weren't supposed to win.
Yeah, they
Um,
weren't.
so I mean, it's one of those games that I think really could be a benchmark for Kentucky season to show you, hey, this is when we start pay attention to them for that possible national championship run.
I was going to ask you about that because, like, while the defense still it's good, not great among the elite and things like that, their offense has been really good overall, and they're playing really good basketball. And you look at the resume, they got to win against Duke, they got to win against Gonzaga. They look like a good basketball team. I mean, the resume is starting to come together a little bit for them. It's not quite as strong as Auburn, but it's still a good resume, and it's one that they should be still like even on Monday when this episode's coming out at noon when the AP poll drops. They should be somewhere in the top 5 still, even after the loss against Clemson, because good teams win big basketball games, and they went into a or a neutral site game there in Seattle, Washington to play Gonzaga. Come on. Like that was an impressive win and a big bounce back, one that I didn't think they were going to win. And it's not because I didn't think Kentucky was a bad basketball team they wouldn't win. It's because it's a tough game. It's a really tough game in a tough situation. And they responded out of that locker room and said, we're going to figure it out. Another thing I just love, Kentucky's got fight. They got a
Mhm.
lot of fight. This team's got an attitude about them. They're not going to quit. They don't like it's just like what we were talking about after the Clemson game. It's like we're going to learn a lot about Kentucky, and we said they're going to be fine. They're going to find ways to win. They're going to win conference games on the road this year. 100%. We said after Clemson they will keep fighting when they're backed up into a corner. We kept seeing that in the Clemson game, even though it wasn't going their way. This game they get backed up into another corner, and this time they land a haymaker and get back into the ring and knock the other guy out. Like it was an impressive performance.
Definitely. One of the things that they mentioned during the broadcast was that now Mark Pope and Adolph Rupp are the only two coaches in Kentucky history to win their first 2 games against AP top 10 teams. So
That's a wild statistic.
I absolutely crazy, just kind of shows you the turnaround that this Kentucky team is having with the first year coach. That is a
Mm-hmm.
wild.
Yep, no, it's an impressive run. It's an impressive start for Kentucky this season. We'll see if they can keep it up. They're playing great basketball right now. Playing really, really good basketball right now. It's exciting for sure. Kentucky faces Colgate on Wednesday. I'm sure Rupp Arena will have some very, very happy fans there for that one.
Definitely. But let's talk a game that absolutely no one outside of the Missouri Tigers fan base expected. Mizzou absolutely dominated the number one Kansas Jayhawks in the first half. This is the fifth time the Tigers have beaten the number one team, and it's the fourth that has been the Jayhawks.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy since, like, you talk about the long standing history of this game, and then you come in here for this one this week. They haven't won since 2012, this game. And then they pull it out here in what's going to be the last home game or home game for one of these teams because it's getting played in Kansas City for future scheduling here going forward. It's an impressive game. It's an impressive performance. Really thought Kansas was going to respond after that just awful performance against Creighton. And what's really funny, and Missouri fans laugh with us a little bit here because like Kansas turned down playing UConn in the Big East Big 12 championship because they didn't want to travel that much before having to play Missouri, which is the big rivalry game. So they instead wanted they got their way and got to play Creighton in Omaha, which is closer to them than having to go to stores. Ironically, they end up losing both games. That's the best part of this if you're a Missouri fan, and that's the thing that you get to make fun of Kansas of for a good long while, at least 1 year here, and you're feeling really, really good about yourself and how this turned out. A couple of players here on Missouri I want to throw out. Tamar Bates, 29 points plus 13 for the night overall. Absolute scoring threat for Missouri in this one. Then Mitchell also picked up 17 points. He was plus 6, had 4 boards. And then we said he was a constant. We said he was a constant. And that's Robinson, 34 minutes, 11 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, goes plus 17 for the night in this one. Another thing, Maddie, we talked about interesting, before this game is like, when is Dennis Gates going to shorten his bench? When is that going to happen? I'm going to break down the minutes here. This is the list of players who played double-digit minutes tonight for Missouri. Tamar Bates, Mitchell, Robinson, Gray, Perkins, and Aiden Shaw. Everybody else has 5 minutes or like 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Marquise Warwick had 8 minutes in this one. Really short bench tonight. Like Dennis Gates shortened that bench, and I mean, they got out and they put a hurt on Kansas at home in this one.
To be fair, this is one of the first games, that I've watched Mizzou play where they've had guys that were a consistent threat. Because I feel like before this game, you kind of had to sub to figure out who was going to make things work. But I mean, the second half did look a little shaky. Kansas started to make a comeback, but Mizzou was able to hold on to the lead. And like you said, Tamar Bates was a huge contributor to that. And their defense is kind of what won them the game here. You mentioned some of those players that you mentioned on that list. Fantastic defensive players for this Mizzou team. I think some of the best defensive players that could either come off of their bench or as starters. But really, I mean, defense was the biggest thing here. And I think that's kind of why Gates decided to hold off on subbing people because they were just gelling so well.
They had 14 steals in this game, which puts them at +9 against Kansas. They stole the ball 9 more times than what Kansas's defense is. And mind
They
you,
forced
Kansas is a team known for defense.
they forced 22 turnovers.
Yeah.
Absolute wild. I mean, I think they had 14 in the first half alone. It just had the Jayhawks absolutely scrambling for buckets in the first half. I mean, they obviously, like I said, they made a run in that second half, but the Tigers went on a 15-0 cold streak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anybody's going to come back if you're doing something like that. But, they were able to bounce back, hold on to the lead, and their defense is what kept them in that game.
Yeah, no, Kansas made a late push in this one, and Missouri weathering the storm was very, very impressive. Very
Mhm.
impressive moment for them. And I think that's something that you can build on and you could build momentum off of because you just beat the number one. They won't be on Monday, but like you just beat the number one team in the country who happens to be your biggest rival. That's a momentum builder.
Mhm.
Missouri really didn't have a good win in non-conference. This was a great win. Great win at home, one that's going to age well. You know Kansas is going to be good. So getting this win is a huge piece now for Missouri's resume. They're on their way. They are on their way, and there's going to be a lot of teams out of the SEC in the NCAA tournament, especially when you're picking up wins against Kansas. And how about the Big 12 just continuing to, absolutely struggle? Maddie, this was another one you watched. I'll move us on to the next one here. A&M survives that rivalry matchup renewal with Texas Tech there. I was traveling back from work, so I'll let you talk about this game real quick. But it was a survival game for Texas A&M, and I'm glad that we hit one of our unanimous picks this weekend.
Definitely, this game was a constant back and forth, especially in the second half. We saw another outstanding leadership style outing for Wade Taylor. And then the unsung hero of the game, I feel, was Solomon Washington. He only had 8 points, but he came away with 9 boards and 2 blocks. And he had some of those spots that, aren't usually seen on a stat sheet, but a lot of momentum building plays and excellent defense to keep Tech grasping for closure in this one, and they just couldn't get it.
Yeah, and it's an impressive win. Texas Tech should be fine somewhere in the Big 12, but here is A&M surviving this game, fighting it out, roughing it out. And you talked about Solo Washington having a pretty good game in this one. It was a good one, and of course Wade Taylor going off is just it's expected at this point what Wade Taylor's going to do. But yeah, that was a big one. And then the other one there in the Coast to Coast Challenge, Maddie, we were split on this one, but it's another one for the SEC. Vanderbilt continuing to pick up good wins. I picked Vandy. Did you pick Vandy? I'm just saying I picked Vandy.
Hey, it was a close game.
It was a close game.
It
It
was
was
a
a
close
close game. It was a really, really good
I
game.
said it was a coin toss.
I just want to note here one of the big things that came away from this game is when you look at it, Texas A&M or not Texas A&M, TCU's doing a pretty good job there in the first half, has control, and then Vanderbilt takes it over in the second half. Really does what they need to do, opens up the biggest lead of the night for them. Really effective, efficient shooting overall. Even though the percentages weren't great, you're getting to the spots that you want to get to for your Vanderbilt in this game. And they had two really big runs in this one. They had that 9-1 run at the beginning of the second half, and then midway through the second half, they had that 15-4 run in this one. And then they also, did a really good job. They converted their free throws. They were plus 13 from the charity stripe for Vanderbilt. So in a game that you can't make baskets, get them at the foul stripe. Vanderbilt got that job done. And then also, Vandy's also forcing more steals, more turnovers overall in this game. That made a big difference. We talked about it. If Vandy's defense plays better than what TCU's offense can execute and just gets a few stops, Vanderbilt's offense is better than TCU. And they did a really good job of getting to the foul stripe tonight. So this was a good game for Vanderbilt. And I mean, again, this one kind of goes to script. Also, like Jason Edwards, we said you had to get him going. Real right now, it has him analytically the best player for Vanderbilt in the night. He had a decent night. He was 50% from the field, 30 points, and +8 in this game. So, just he was fine,
He did all right. He
He
got
did,
the
he
job.
did just fine. Coming back into the Dallas Fort Worth area here after playing for North Texas last year, he made a splash. He played great, absolutely great performance here. One more to talk about. This is probably the one that I listened to it on the way in the car. Maddie, you watched this game while I was coming back from my work trip this weekend, but UConn got out in front of Texas and they never had a chance to get back, really.
Definitely so. We talked about kind of that front court being the struggle there for Texas. You saw Shedrick get hurt, which really hurt Texas's chance for a comeback. They started, building back, getting closer, but Alex Caravan with a big night to derail any kind of comeback in their tracks. And the Huskies took the win 76-65. Despite the loss, though, big night for both Trey Johnson and Arthur Kaluma. Good things to take away from that. I think it's going to be one of those building losses. And I mean, it's not a bad loss, even though
No,
you're
it's not. Yeah.
one of the best teams in the country. Yeah, they may have gone on a short losing streak, but they're not going anywhere.
No, they're not. Dan Hurley's now won back-to-back games. They're looking better. Like I said, I think things just snowballed on them out there in Maui. You lose one and you have no momentum. You can't get a practice in to really fix it. It's, what it is. And that happens to a lot of teams out there, good teams. And, I think, Dan Hurley's got his team motivated and going right now. Big note here also, besides, we're going to talk about Texas and, how their performance went. But like we talked about Aiden Mahaney, coming into this one, he was still kind of quiet, for this game, only 6 points, but, he's contributing a little bit more here and there for UConn over the last two games. He was +3 tonight, had a decent night. We'll see how that goes for him on a national scale moving further on. But you talked about Trey Johnson. I mean, Trey Johnson with 24 points was excellent. 4 assists in this game, 3 steals as well. Tremont Mark had kind of a rough game, but this is his first big game since coming back from that injury. He missed the Ohio State game. Gets in this one, finds 5 points, 2 rebounds. Doesn't play a ton of minutes. Kind of the bench option tonight for Texas. Came our way with 18 minutes in this one. Really want to see him get going because, like, I think that really adds an additional scoring threat for Texas moving forward. Takes a little bit of pressure off of Trey Johnson to where he doesn't have to be the only guy. Like, I know he's going to be a big scorer on Texas. That's his role on this team. But you got guys on this team like, Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark that we just like to see more out of. Like, and I think that will bring Texas backcourt a little bit further. And of course, the big injury tonight, we don't know exactly what the update is, but Shedrick had a pretty, he left the game there for a little bit, didn't he, Maddie?
Yeah, he did. They were mentioning on the broadcast, he fell pretty hard on one of those shoulders. He's had surgery on both shoulders. So probably something they'll just look at, kind of attend to as needed. Didn't look like anything major. So that's a good sign for Texas fans, but we'll keep you guys updated, as we know more information.
Yeah, and we're recording late Sunday night on this one, so hopefully we'll hear something, after I don't know, the next 24 hours, the next time we preview a Texas game. But overall, for Texas, they still don't have that great win that we're looking for them. And it's got to be a little bit frustrating because their schedule overall is pretty weak. They've beaten a lot of, just bad teams. And for Texas, they eventually have to come away with something. So they're putting more and more pressure on the SEC schedule moving forward to come away with that win that helps them become a tournament team. They haven't lost anything bad yet, which that's a good sign. They need to come away with something eventually. Well, we already mentioned that Kentucky plays Colgate here in the early part of the week. Like I said, we're getting 2 episodes, but the big story in the SEC for this week is that on Tuesday, it is, of course, one of the biggest events in college basketball, the Jimmy V Classic. And of course, we got two SEC teams playing there in New York in the mecca of basketball. And that's going to be Tennessee taking on Miami and Arkansas taking on Michigan. Maddie, let's start with the first game. Game one.
Yeah, let's take a bite out of the Big Apple. Tennessee, who is sitting on top of the world right now, takes on Miami, team that's having a pretty rough go as of right now.
Yeah, Miami's really struggling. And I still hold that I don't think Miami's played their best basketball this season. I think they're better than their record. I think like anytime you beat this team, like they should do something, and I mean something in ACC play. I don't mean like they're just going to beat everybody, but like this team was picked fourth, in the ACC this season. They were expected to make a bounce back, and they have some guys who can play basketball. So getting this win, like it may age into a lower quad 2 game at some point here, but we'll see what happens with Miami's season. So this is still a good opportunity for Tennessee, regardless how Miami's playing right now. Big takeaway in this one, as we previewed it, we've already seen them play against Arkansas this season. Number one guy, Nigel Pack. He's going to be a big piece of this. He's the Kansas State transfer, and you just can't leave him open. The kid can shoot. He absolutely can shoot when left open. And then Pack's paired up with Jalen Blackman, and then Matthew Cleveland, who is a capable scorer. Not quite to the level that Pack is, but he is still a really good scorer. And we saw him wake up against Arkansas there in the ACC or in the SEC ACC Challenge. He had a big game. We knew he was not like just the greatest player of all times, but we knew he was better than what the numbers were up to this point in the season. And he finally had his breakout moment in this one. And then additionally, you're probably going to see some of AJ Stanton McCray out there for Miami, and then Divine Ugachukwu. Additionally, Maddie, that's the backcourt for Miami. How do you feel it compares to Tennessee's backcourt? Because I've got pretty strong opinions on, who matches who there.
Yeah, I think the backcourt is going to be the biggest challenge here for Tennessee. But I don't think that it anywhere near matches up to Tennessee's backcourt.
Neither
I
do
think
I.
we're looking like a clash between Lanier and Ziegler going head to head with Pack and Blackman. But like I said, I don't think the backcourt's a match at all. Maybe take in some of those bench players and it might be a match. But you look at the games that Chaz Lanier's been having, Zakai Ziegler being, the floor general that he is, I feel like this matchup is going to have Miami in pieces.
Yeah, that's going to be the really tough thing because you got guys who contribute everywhere. You got Zakai Ziegler, like you mentioned. He knows the standard. He knows what to do. And then Chaz Lanier is a very, very good scorer. He's starting to wake up and play great basketball, like what was expected out of him when he came out of the transfer portal right now. He's becoming a bigger piece of this team. Meshack's tough, because he's a really good defender. And that's right there, the other big portion of this whole thing. Tennessee's backcourt is a lot better on defense than Miami's backcourt is. So I think there's going to be a ton of scoring opportunities for the guys there on Tennessee to hit threes, get downhill, get to the paint. They're going to find options. It may not be the guys, but they're going to find somebody to put up points. It may be an emphasis on defense for Miami to shut down Zakai Ziegler or shut down Chaz Lanier. Well, then that's going to open it up for Jordan Gainey. It's going to open it up for Meshack. Just Tennessee's got the depth. They got the players. They got the better backcourt. Miami's going to probably put up some points because they are a good offensive team, but Tennessee's defense is way better, and they may shut down Miami's offense pretty well. So I'm pretty confident in that as well. And then the front court, you got Lynn Kidd and Brandon Johnson for Miami. Lynn Kidd is more of like an efficient scorer type, traditional five-man. This is going to be, Felix Akpara's matchup that he's going to have to take away. But one thing that I think is going to be really, really difficult, for Tennessee or not for Tennessee, but for Miami is, you got Brandon Johnson, who's a utility style player. He can hit from three, and he's the best rebounder on this Miami team. But Tennessee's got a guy like that too, and Igor Milicic, who's athletic, can play well, play smart, shoots the three ball. He's tough to play against. I just don't think like even the places that Miami has some sort of advantage, Tennessee has an answer for, and they play a much better, style of or much better defensive game than what Miami has. So here on a neutral site, I'm really, really, really liking Tennessee, and KenPom's kind of with us on this one. KenPom has this game 80-65, Tennessee at 92%. Maddie, who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going with the Vols.
I am also going with the Vols. It just makes sense in this one. Not the best opportunity, but I do think that overall, this is a game that Tennessee should win. It's another big chance for Arkansas to put something on the resume and their last chance of the non-conference schedule. This is also a game where the storylines just kind of write themselves. Johnelle Davis is facing his old coach, Dusty May, and former teammate Vlad Golden there in Michigan. Dusty May, of course, being the coach of that FAU team that made the Final Four a few years ago. This is his new job in a new place. Maddie, when you look at this matchup, what are you thinking here between these two teams?
Yeah, so taking a dive into Michigan, they're 8-1, and they've got some decent wins this season. They've got a win against Wisconsin, Xavier, Virginia Tech, and Iowa. They've proved that they can play ball. They've got some good guys on their team. They've got an ex-SEC player in Trey Donaldson. They've got a guy named Roddy Gale. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a fantastic basketball player. And then Danny Wolf leading this Wolverines team. This is going to be a huge backcourt battle for the Hogs, Danny Wolf being the only front court player that I'd mentioned. But I think this is where we're going to have to see that backcourt defense step up, kind of like they did in that Miami game that they played, because Michigan's going to try and score some points here.
Yeah, their overall offense is still kind of developing right now. KenPom likes it. They're good, not the greatest, or like it can be better. Like they haven't hit their ceiling yet by any means. They're a good, efficient offense right now. They just haven't blown the doors off of anybody like you would expect. They've got some great wins though so far, which is another reason why KenPom really likes them. They beat Wisconsin. They had another good win against Xavier early in the season. This is a quality basketball team here. And then it's comprised of good players like Trey Donaldson, Namari Burnett, Roddy Gale. Those guys are all hitting from three out there. They're all picking up a couple of threes a night in this. Roddy Gale's getting 1.1. And then Trey Donaldson's hitting at 1.7 a game, and then you've also got Burnett at 1.9. That's your best shooter right there, and he's hitting from the field right now at over 50%. And then you got those same guys. Roddy Gale's hitting at 35.7% from three, and then Trey Donaldson's at 45.5%, and then Burnett at 45.9%. Where it kind of goes away is as you go further down this bench, the numbers kind of deteriorate, and they're not to that same level. But this is the starters for Michigan are really, really darn good, and they also back it up their efficient offensive numbers with really great defense, and that's really helping Michigan out right now. And that's what's going to make this matchup very tough for Arkansas because their offense has just not gotten going to the level that you want to see it go to so far.
Yeah, and this is kind of a comeback home game for Boogie Fland, so maybe we'll see him go off in another game here. Hopefully, having
He
that
struggled
back
against
field.
UTSA. He struggled a little bit against
He
UTSA.
did.
So I'd like to see him bounce back in a big way.
So yeah, I think if we see Boogie Fland have a breakout game here and just really go off, what we need to see is some production from Arkansas's front court. Thankfully, we got to see Jonas Adu have another game where he stepped up in the minutes, was able to produce a little bit more than we've been seeing him. So I think if we can get him at, full game capacity, what we saw in Tennessee from him, I think they've got a chance to match up well against Danny Wolf and hopefully pull out a win on this road game.
Yeah, and I will say this. We're going to get into this front court just a little bit more for Michigan because they got some guys who can play some ball. But Jonas Adu, over the last couple of games, you can see him getting better. You can see it. You can tell it's not quite Jonas Adu from Tennessee yet. And again, that's because of the injury. That's because he has not played ball for several weeks prior to the season. And it's really, he needs to get back and play in basketball shape right now more than anything else coming off this injury. If he's healthy, that's great. You also need Big Z to get healthy again too. Like he's been battling injury. He battled injury in that Miami game. Then he was set pretty much against UTSA. So you're just kind of hoping that he bounces back as well. But right now, I'll tell you who's playing good ball, or at least in that second half against UTSA, he played some really darn good ball. That was Trevin Brazile. Trevin Brazile was playing some really, really good basketball. He played excellent in that second half against UTSA. He hit some shots, got some blocks. He played a really good basketball game in that one. I want to see more of that because the thing is, I think that Arkansas's front court is actually the best part of their team when they're healthy. Like that's going to be the big thing here is that like can you get these big guys healthy all at once and then get them playing at their top tier of basketball. But yeah, against that UTSA game, we hadn't seen a version of Trevin Brazile like that since Maui. Like that was a minute ago. Like I'm glad that we're seeing that progress happen right now and he's playing better ball. I want to see that continue for him right now because that's exciting. We'll see how that goes. Want to see it game to game now. And for Arkansas, additionally, this front court that you're facing in Michigan, Danny Wolf knows how to beat a team. He's really good. He was a big part of that Yale victory over Auburn last year in the NCAA tournament. That huge upset. Really good basketball player. Vlad Golden knows how to play with Dusty May. He knows the expectation. He knows what's going on there. When you look at this front court here for Michigan, Danny Wolf's averaging 12.1 points a game. Vlad Golden's averaging 12. Really good, numbers there. And then Vlad Golden's very proficient with 20.2 points per 40 right now for the Wolverines. And he's also your leading free throws made per game. And then Danny Wolf's leading you with a double a night right now when you calculate the boards in there as well. Then Vlad Golden, like I said, very efficient scorer. He's their game high points leader. So you have to play great defense and fight on the glass if you're Arkansas in this one. To me, this is the spot right here. If you get good minutes from your front court and they're playing really good ball, Arkansas can be a very good team and they have a chance. But right now, with the injuries and the issues, I don't know about that. Like, unless we see this team kind of coming together, that's where the problem is going to lie for this game. So you have to play great defense. You have to get Jonas Adu, Big Z, someone, Trevin Brazile, to have a big night defensively in this game for Arkansas to have a chance in it. And to me, that's what really is the crucial thing here. Couple more things I want to hit on. Nellie Davis. Nelly Davis played pretty good, pretty well against UTSA. Please keep these numbers up. Please go. And I'm understanding the role that Cal wants him on. He wants to be the knockdown shooter guy. Wants not quite play the same game that he had at FAU. It's start. I can see the vision, but like the ceiling is still higher. So I want him to keep going. I want to see a big night from Nelly Davis. I want to see something like that to where he could be that consistent shooter. And here he is, gets his old coach, gets his old teammate Vlad Golden. That's got a storyline in it. Maybe we can have a big night from him as well. Other thing for Arkansas, they've been playing really good ball in the second half in the last 3 games. Even in that loss against Illinois, it was drastically improved from the last one on here. And I want to look because I just needed I forgot to look at this at the end of yesterday, and I was like, Arkansas really did not play well from, in that first half against UTSA. But when you look at it from the chart on this one, we pointed out the shot chart last time. Arkansas shot chart, when it comes to how they play ball in that second half against UTSA, very similar to what we saw against the second half against Miami, where they took better shots. I only see like really one shot that I would like. Let's not take that one. And if I remember that shot, it was actually a make, but it was like, sometimes they go in. Bad shots sometimes fall in the hoop too. But like overall, again, Arkansas in the second half somehow figures out what a good shot is all of a sudden. So I think Cal's making a few adjustments there, trying to be like, guys, this is where you need to be shooting the ball. This is where we get good offense from. So, and again, first half, it's yick. Just a bunch of shots you don't want to see a team taking. So, unless you want to be shooting from tough positions in the mid range, let's do that for 2 halves. I want to see a full 40 minutes from Arkansas. I don't know if we'll get that against Michigan. We'll find out.
Maybe Cal just needs to, grab one of those New York teams while they're there and we do like a half scrimmage. So that way, when they go into the first half against Michigan, they'll actually play decent basketball.
Maybe, yeah, just a half scrimmage, 5-on-5 ball. It's like, all right, guys, we got now that you saw what not to do, let's not do that. Just go find someone. Go play the Nets and just really just hurt yourself.
Go out to Rucker Park. There's usually some talent there. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. All right, Maddie, the KenPom line in this one is KenPom has it 74-70, Michigan 37%. Who are you going with in this one?
I really want to go Arkansas here, but I can't trust this front court yet because we haven't seen consistent basketball out of them. So unfortunately, I'm going to go with Michigan for the win. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that's my pick.
Yeah, I'm with you. I need to see a full 40 minutes of Arkansas before I pick them in a game like this, and maybe this is the game. But like, hopefully, this is a big opportunity. This is a big stage. But I want to see a full 40 minutes. They're nowhere near their potential right now. This team could be a lot better. And right now, Michigan's playing good ball. So I'm like you. The pick right now is Michigan in this. Let's see how Arkansas responds coming out and see if they got some momentum coming out of that UTSA game. But right now, Michigan. That's the pick. Michigan is 100% the pick, and it's the logical one. All right, guys, if you have not already, please like and subscribe to the Hoop Southbound Show. We greatly appreciate it. Guys, we will be back probably on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, one of the two, to preview the rest of the week. We got a huge week of basketball ahead. Just to name a couple of these games that we didn't talk about today that are going to be talked about over the weekend. You've got Texas A&M playing Purdue. You've got Ohio State Auburn coming up. You've also got a huge game. One of the best rivalry games in college basketball between Kentucky and Louisville, and then also Alabama Creighton's a huge rivalry game. If you know, you know. But guys, please like and subscribe, and we will catch you guys real soon.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.